Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us here on Mirror Now. This is Urban Debate and I'm Heena Gambhir. Omicron-led third wave hit India just when the Indian economy started showing signs of a turnaround, with some sectors like manufacturing seeing disruptions again, especially due to restrictions being announced by several state governments. India Inc. now wants booster shots for its employees. Biocon Chief and Corporate India's top name, Kiran Majumdar Shaw, has urged Prime Minister Narendra Modi to allow companies to provide booster doses of COVID-19 vaccine to their employees. And she is joining us tonight on Urban Debate. Ms. Kiran Majumdar Shaw, it's a pleasure to have you on Urban Debate this evening. Thank you very much for joining us. You've recently urged the Prime Minister to allow companies to provide booster doses of COVID-19 to employees. Why, ma'am? Why do you think it is the need of the hour?
Thank you for asking that question. I'd like to respond by saying that as a manufacturing company, I have experienced a large number of disruptions because of people testing positive in various parts of our organization. And this has led to obviously stoppages of various manufacturing activities and related enabling functions, which is really not something any organization wants. And as you know, there has been a slowing down in manufacturing activity in the country over the last several weeks, all attributable to the recent wave. And therefore, I believe that in order to secure our workplaces, especially manufacturing entities, which I believe is an essential service, we need to deliver boosters to our employees. And therefore, I have requested the Prime Minister to consider allowing employers to vaccinate their employees with booster doses.
Ma'am, during the first phase of precautionary doses that are being administered right now, they are being given to frontline workers, healthcare workers and individuals above the age of 60, people who are vulnerable in the current situation. At a time when a significant size of the eligible population still hasn't received its second dose, don't you think it would be wise to administer the second dose to those people first and then consider booster shots for everyone, for employees, anyone and everyone who has got the 2 doses?
So let me start by saying that this was certainly valid at a time when we had vaccine inadequacy. Today, I think 70% of our adult population is fully vaccinated. And when you look at delivering vaccinations to 30% of those who require a second jab, I think we have adequate vaccines to do that. And we have adequate vaccines to initiate booster doses. I think the government is certainly doing its bit by vaccinating the vulnerable and the frontline workers. But I believe that we should be permitted to vaccinate our employees at our own cost, because I do believe that this is a time when industry needs to make sure that we keep the economic revival going. And I think the pace has slowed down and we want to make sure it doesn't slow down. Equally, I would also like to say that it is important for us now to open up the vaccination opportunities, or those who want to be vaccinated with booster doses, to the private sector. I think hospitals and companies ought to be given the freedom to provide booster doses to anyone who wants it. I know a large number of people below the age of 60 who are also keen to be boosted. And unfortunately, there is no permission to allow them to be given a booster dose. So I just think the time has now come to open up the market for booster doses, because there are enough vaccines available. And India is one country that has multiple vaccines to deploy.
Ms. Shaw, now globally, there is this understanding that immunity actually begins to wane after 6 months of getting the first 2 doses of the COVID vaccines. Is it time now to widen the net, according to you, to give booster shots then to everyone above the age of 18?
Well, I personally believe that it has to be opened up. Those who want to be vaccinated with a booster dose ought to have that choice. And I believe that with the vaccine adequacy that we have in our country, I don't see why we can't open it up. I don't think it is no longer required to be mandated because I think a large part of our population is vaccinated. I just mentioned that 70% have already received 2 doses. And I think if people now want booster doses, since many of them would have been vaccinated 6 months ago, I think you should open it up.
Misha, do you believe that we are in some way underutilizing the capacity of vaccine manufacturers in the country?
Well, that's one way of looking at it because I do know that between all the vaccine makers, we have almost 3 billion doses of vaccines that will be made available to us in 2022. And with that kind of quantity, I think we must feel safe and secure. And we are actually going to be in a good position to export these vaccines. We have been shut out of the export market because we decided to ban exports, and rightly so, because the need of the hour was in the country. But now that, we are in a safe place with 70% vaccinated, I think we need to start freeing up the vaccine makers in terms of where they can market and also to allow them to provide booster shots to a large part of the general population.
Ma'am, in your tweet, you had also mentioned about massive work disruptions. Can you tell us a little bit more about the kind of impact that you have seen because of this Omicron-led third wave in your company, in your sector, and overall in the industry?
You see, any company or organization that needs on-site workers or employees is facing disruptions, starting with hospitals. I think hospitals are also facing huge disruptions in hospital services because nurses and doctors are testing positive. Similarly, in our organization, which is a manufacturing and research-led organization, many of our departments are also seeing a large number of positive cases, which means we then have to shut down those operations. So it's not easy for companies to continue in terms of providing all the services that they need to. And therefore, I believe that we need to make sure that we keep a safe environment. And I, for one, believe that the only way of doing so is to boost the immunity of our employees who need to come on site. As a company and as most organizations, we do ensure that as many people who can work from home can do so. But as you know, many of them are also testing positive, but that's fine because they can still function from home. But those who have to come on site for work are certainly testing positive and disrupting activity.
And when you say that companies must be permitted, are you trying to suggest that companies should be allowed to procure vaccine doses and administer them to their employees on their own?
Well, we've done it in the case of vaccines and we in the past, and we want to do it in the case of boosters today. So, companies have actually procured vaccines and, partnered with either hospitals or other providers to vaccinate their employees. That's what I mean.
Is the availability of vaccine, behind India's current booster shot strategy, or do you think India is just being a little cautious with booster shots?
So in the past, I think the government was very concerned about the availability of doses, but today I don't think that is the concern. And I really think we ought to now open up.
Now, do you think India should allow mixing of vaccines as well? Because as of now, booster shot is the same dose that a person has got as the first 2 doses. So if somebody in India has got 2 doses of Covishield, then the booster will also be Covishield. Likewise, if the person has got 2 doses of Covaxin, then the booster will also be Covaxin. Do you think India should allow mixing of vaccines?
there is enough data to show that heterologous vaccinations is far more efficacious than homologous vaccination. And I think the government must allow heterologous boosters for sure, because there's enough data to show that when you combine, for instance, there is data to show that when you combine the Covishield or AstraZeneca vaccine with the Covovax or the Novavax vaccine, there is enhanced superior efficacy in terms of immunity boost. Of course, there's also a lot of data to show that mRNA vaccines do the same thing. But I think for a country that has so many different vaccines, Covishield, Covax, I don't see why we should not allow the mix and match policy for vaccination. There is enough data available, at least for the Covishield, Covovax vaccine combination. And I'm sure by doing small trials with Corbevax and with others, I'm sure you will also see a similar benefit.
Are there any kind of concerns or safety concerns really in mixing vaccines?
Well, I just mentioned that there has been a trial done with the AstraZeneca and Novavax vaccines, which doesn't show any safety concerns.
Now, let me also take this opportunity, Ms. Kiran Shaw, to get your assessment of the current third wave of COVID that we are all witnessing across the country. What is your view? Is the strategy correct in fighting this wave, or do you think something more and more aggressive needs to be done?
Well, fortunately, the third wave has not been a devastating wave because enough data around the world that is emanating, which shows that the Omicron virus only affects the upper respiratory tract and does not really go to the lungs, which all the previous variants, including Delta, was doing. So I think from that point of view, this is a safer virus to deal with. And I feel we are beginning to peak. And so I feel that we will obviously be in a much safer place by the middle of February when it is expected to start waning. But I think we have to be watchful because we don't know what the next variant is going to look like. So it's not that we are out of the woods, but I would say that we have seen that vaccines have protected people. You may say that it's the mild virus that has protected people. But I also believe that vaccinations themselves have basically muted the impact of the virus. And hopefully, even going forward, if once we get booster shots, even if there is a new variant, we should be well protected.
Well, it's good to hear that vaccines clearly have helped the country so far in fighting this wave as well. But you're right when you say we are still not out of the woods completely. Ms. Kiran Majumdar Shaw, I also want to ask you about how children have been severely impacted during this pandemic. Schools have not really reopened in most parts of the country. School children haven't gone to school for about 2 years now. Do you see that as a huge concern going forward and something that the government should now be really, focusing on?
Absolutely. I think this is a very serious concern, both from a mental health point of view and from a psychological point of view. I think children must go back to school. And I, for one, believe that the vaccinations ought to have been permitted for 12-year-olds and up, even though we have got data for even ages lower than that, but at least they should have started for 12 and above instead of restricting it to 15-year-olds and above. So I think we should vaccinate 12-year-old and above as soon as possible and get them back to school. And then we need to start vaccinating younger children because it's very important to get children back into classrooms.
And what does this pandemic really mean for college students, specifically the ones who cleared college in the last 2 years? Will there be concern around their employability?
I assume you're referring to college students and not high school students. Yeah, so I think when you look at college going students, I feel very sorry for many of them who have missed out on really attending college programs and college classes. And of course, they are now ready for the job market, and obviously, the job market is very difficult at this point in time. I guess the only sector that can actually hire very rampantly is the kind of IT sector where digital skills are sought after in large numbers. So I think such students are not having such a problem being employed, but many others who are required in many other sectors such as engineering, such as manufacturing, such as pharmaceuticals, such as hospitality, and travel, etc., there aren't enough jobs. So I think there is a huge problem in terms of jobs, and I think we really need to seriously look at that. And that is why I'm very keen that we open up our economy as rapidly as we possibly can. And I feel booster shots are very important for that. I think a lot of young people want to be boosted so that they can feel safer in terms of traveling out for jobs and for their employment. But right now, I think everyone is anxious, everyone is paranoid, because I find anybody who tests positive believes that they really don't know what they're in for. And we just need to live with the pandemic.
And now we are just few days away from the big budget announcement for 2022. What is it that you're looking forward to? It's going to be the second budget amid a pandemic.
Well, I think, India is poised to really play a very strong role in the global economy. And I think if we start focusing on many of the policies that we started off with in terms of ease of doing business, removing half the regulatory hurdles that were preventing rapid progress, getting used to a digital economy which really basically learns to come out with regulations that really spur this economy, I think we have a huge potential. I also believe that, innovation is at last seeing some semblance of recognition. And I think we need to see a large number of incentives by way of research-linked incentives, at least for our sector. There are a large number of opportunities opening up, especially for the digital economy, for the pharma sector, of course, for the IT sector. But the service sector in general is again seeing a huge mushrooming of opportunities. I also believe that infrastructure is going to see a large, growth and so on and so forth. But I think we really need to make sure that we focus on the enablers. One is, of course, we are also seeing high inflation, and we are also seeing very high leverage, which we can't afford in the long term. So I think these are some of the measures that we need to look at to calibrate growth. But I personally believe India has a huge opportunity to deliver very robust and sustainable growth. And given some of the geopolitics in the world, I think India can surge ahead with the right policies.
And coming back to that booster dose debate again, Ms. Shaw, can booster dose really prevent now new variants?
I don't think we can claim that, because we have clearly seen that there's immune escape taking place with the Omicron virus, and we just don't know what the next virus looks like. But one thing I think we can feel confident about is that vaccines do help. They do prevent severe disease. They do prevent hospitalization, as you can see from this wave, where the number of people in hospitals is very, very low, and people in ICUs and on ventilators is very minuscule. So I think that should give you some hope.
And it's been 2 years now, Ms. Shaw. Can we expect some COVID treatments as well very soon?
I think you're wrong in making that statement that there are no treatments available. There are plenty of treatments available. You have also seen that in recent times, 2 oral pills have been approved by both US FDA and WHO from Merck and Pfizer. In addition to that, there are many monoclonal antibody preparations that have also been approved by US FDA and WHO. Remdesivir has also played a very important role. And in our country, favipiravir has also played a very important role. So I don't think you can say we don't have treatments. And of course, tocilizumab and itolizumab have played a very important role in addressing the CRS associated with COVID-19. So I think there are a large number of treatments, and the good news is that doctors have at last learned how to manage the disease. So I think we are in a much stronger position today than we were at the start of the pandemic, when we really didn't know what the pandemic was doing in terms of the immune system. But today, I think we understand the pandemic and the virus much better. I think we have a large number of interventions possible. And I feel far more confident that we can manage the pandemic. And that is why I believe we should not be getting into lockdowns and curfews and really, disrupting economic revival.
And last question, Ms. Kiran Majumdar Shaw, before I let you go. Are you heartbroken as a fan that Novak Djokovic won't be there for Australian Open this year, the way that entire saga unfolded?
Well, I think, the decision has been taken because he did not really provide all the correct facts. I think he was found to be non-compliant in many ways. And obviously, as countries go, they have to ensure that anyone entering their country and anyone playing a tournament like the Australian Open needs to be compliant. And it's unfortunate that he will not be competing, but I wish he hadn't taken this stand.
All right, Ms. Kiran Majumdar Shaw, thank you very much for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now this evening. It's a pleasure talking to you. We'll see how the government really responds to the request that has been made by you, and whether the government will allow companies to administer booster shots to the employees or not. We'll, of course, be watching that point very, very closely. Thank you for the moment for joining us.